Hi, my name is Kat, or a regular librarian, and welcome to a reading vlog. February is Black History Month, and so I thought, how about I do a vlog where I read some books by Black authors, because I haven't really been prioritizing them for the rest of the month as much as I planned to initially. But so I want to make sure to at least get a couple in. I have 3 books. I think that is like about the amount that I could realistically do before the end of the month, and I would like to get this vlog finished before the end of February. Obviously, it's important to read Black authors year round, and I do that. So any books that I don't read in this vlog, I will read in a different one. But I do definitely want to make sure that I have at least one vlog dedicated to Black authors in Black History Month, because that's kind of the point, to highlight Black voices. But so, as I said, I picked out 3 books. I only have one physically, which is this one. The other 2 are ebooks, so I will go over them really quickly. But for the 2 ebooks, what's really funny is they've been on my TBR for, well, one of them for a very long time, one of them for not quite as long, but it was on my TBR already, and I didn't know like when I would get to them, but then for HRCYED, which I'm participating in, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, there were 2 slightly harder prompts that I wasn't sure what to read for. And so I looked at some suggestions from other people, or like what other people plan to read for it. And these 2 were among them. And I'm like, oh, what a great opportunity to read these. And they both happen to be by Black authors. That's why I'm reading them now. So the first one of those 2 is Necessary Fiction by Eloghosa Osunde, which is a contemporary story that I've been told has polyamory rep, so that is what I'll be using it for in HRCYED. But I'll read you the synopsis from Goodreads. What makes a family? How is it defined and by whom? Is freedom for everyone? Across Lagos, a rolling cast of unforgettable characters seek out love in all its forms, daring to push all other relationships, with partners, family, and friends, to the brink in the process. As they form and break unexpected connections, they reveal how they know each other, have loved each other, and had their hearts broken in that pursuit. Stubbornly alive and brazenly flawed, they work to establish themselves in the city's world of art, music, entertainment, and creativity, while reckoning with desire, fear, death, and God. Here we witness their collective and individual attempts to grapple with the necessary fictions that they all carry for survival. This is a shimmering, defiant, cross-generational portrait of what it means to be queer in contemporary Nigeria. So yeah, this sounds fun. It sounds a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I don't really consider myself just like a contemporary literary fiction, whatever that means, reader. But it does sound interesting, and I would like to read it. So that is going to be the first. I think that this is going to be like kind of a beautiful story of community with also its darker moments. That's what I expect from this. So we'll see if that assumption is correct. Then the second one I know will be heartbreaking and very dark, because that's what I hear everyone talk about it. It's a horror. It is Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. The prompt I needed for this was, intersex. And Rivers Solomon is intersex, which I learned because of HRCYED, so that's cool. But so yeah, this book has been on my TBR, I think, since it came out. So I'm happy that I'm finally getting able to get to it. I'm a little bit nervous though, because I've heard that it's very, very dark. So we'll see, but this is the one I'm probably going to start this vlog off with. So, the Goodreads synopsis. Vern, 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There, she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a hunted woman. Forced to fight back against a community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person could be capable of, her body racked by inexplicable and uncanny changes. To understand her metamorphosis and to protect her small family, Vern has to face the past and, more troublingly, the future outside the woods. Finding the truth will mean uncovering the secrets of the compound she fled, but also the violent history in America that produced it. River Solomon's Sorrowland is a genre-bending work of Gothic fiction. Here, monsters aren't just individuals, but entire nations. This is a searing, seminal book that marks the arrival of a bold, unignorable voice in American fiction. So yeah, I'm really excited. It sounds like there'll be cult stuff in this too, which I enjoy a good cult book every once in a while. So I'm excited for that. But I think it's also going to be talking about like racism. It talks about like the violent history in America. So I think it's gonna go into that direction. And so because of that, I'm planning to use this for the Black History Month prompt for her kid. Because I think that, well, they're all written by Black authors, all these books, but I think that this one will definitely capture the themes related to that experience very prominently. So yeah, I'm excited about this. As I said, I'll probably be starting with this one. Excited, but also a little worried because, as I said, I think it's going to be incredibly, incredibly dark. And then the final book is the one that I have physically. It is Habitus by Radna Fabias, which is a poetry collection. So I'll just read the synopsis on Goodreads. An explosive entry into the world of poetry from the most acclaimed debut poet ever in the Dutch language. Radna Fabias has arrived. Subversive, visual, and bold, Curaçao-born Dutch Radna Fabias' explosive debut connection Habitus marks the entry of a genre-altering poet. Habitus is a collection full of thrilling sensory images, lines in turn grim and enchanting, which move from the Caribbean island of Curaçao to the immigrant experience of the Netherlands. Fabias' intrepid masterpiece explores issues of racism, neocolonialism, poverty, and sexism with a heartbreaking rhythm and endless nuance. Broken into 3 parts, View with Coconut, Rib, and Demonstrable Effort Made, Habitus explores the profound struggles of melancholic longing, womanhood, religion, and migration. This ambitious, powerful, and compassionate collection has emerged, cheering on ambiguity, fluidity, and a lyrical ego on a quest to find its home. This I'm really excited for. It is on my 26 books to read in 2026. Probably the book I'm most excited for from that list. I have read, I think, 1 or 2 of these poems. For this, like we discussed one of them in a class in uni, and there we watched a video of like Radna Fabias reading it herself, and I had goosebumps. It was so good. So yeah, I'm really excited to read the whole collection. Because I think Radna Fabias could turn out to be a new favorite poet, if not just a new favorite author in general. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. This one will probably read a little bit in the background because with poetry, I do like to take my time a little bit more. But so yeah, I'm so excited for this one. that is a TBR. I'm looking forward to this. Especially Sorrowland and Habitus. I'm so excited for it. Necessary Fiction too, but it's just a little bit more outside of my comfort zone, so that's why I'm like, we'll see about that one. But Sorrowland and Habitus, oh, I'm gonna have a great week. I already know it. So yeah, I will go to reading now, and I will talk to you when I have something to say about any of these. Bye. Okay, I have read part 1 of Sorrowland by Robert Solomon, which means I'm 30% in, and I'm really, really enjoying this. So we are following Vern, who has escaped this compound, commune, cult, depending on who you ask, and now lives in the woods trying to survive because she has never really experienced the world outside of the compound in a meaningful way, and so she doesn't really know how it works. She doesn't have money, she can't read, I don't think she even has birth certificate, so she can't really be part in like broader society or like meaningfully, and also she's just scared. So she lives in the woods with her 2 children, because the book starts with her giving birth to 2 children. And yeah, we follow her in the woods caring for her children. We get these flashbacks to moments in the compound, and yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very different from what I expected. Like, I didn't really know what to expect, but still different from what I expected. I don't really know how to talk about this. I'm really liking it. I'm really invested in it. I don't want to put it down. We sort of get to see the compound and what happens there, the blessed acres of Cane, I think it was called, Cane Land for short, which is essentially like this belief that you have Cain and Abel, and like the descendants of Cain are Black people, and so they have like a religion that is sort of Christianity adjacent, because it does have its root there, but is sort of taking a hard turn left and like rejects big parts of it, and stuff like that. And it's very like, by and for Black people, and we sort of see how the teachings of that shape certain things, and just like regular high control religion, cult behavior, where we see a lot of abuse that is being covered up, where these people have ties to the right places to be able to carry on their abuse without really having to face any consequences for it. So we have a discussion on that, but also a kind of like racism and colonialism. And it's very, some of these teachings are very like out there and like very extreme. And and very abusive. But there was also quite a few of them that just seem pretty reasonable and is just basically, like Black people rejecting racism, essentially. Like white people rejecting the narrative of white people and what they sort of spread as the gospel truth, literally. So yeah, it's very interesting to sort of see that dynamic, and it's interesting to sort of follow Vern in that sense because she hasn't really had the opportunity to develop in the way that she would have if she grew up outside of the compound. And so she doesn't really know what to think of the outside world because she's been fed this narrative of the outside world is bad and evil and will treat you horribly, which kind of tracks because they're all Black people. But then there's also things that are very normal within the compound. Certain abuses that are not considered normal in wider society. And so we also have these sides of, these elements that are so much better outside of the compound. And so Vern sort of has to try and rhyme those two visions together. Like she doesn't really know how to feel about the outside world because she doesn't, like, she's always heard these narratives that are very unnuanced, and so she needs to find the nuance in her worldview in order to sort of accept both realities and accept that, yes, even if the outside world is treating you horribly, that doesn't mean that the leadership at the compound treating you horribly is okay. And one doesn't negate the other, which, yeah, I find very interesting. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this book. As I said, I can't put it down. I'm reading it very quickly, which is funny because, like, I don't read like big chunks of it at a time because some of the content is quite dark. But when I put it down, I always like want to pick it back up really quickly. So I'm really engrossed in this. I'm really liking it so far. I really recommend it so far. So yeah, that is my update. I'm going to continue reading this, and then I will talk to you once I have more. Okay, I finished part 2 of Sorrowland, and this is just so interesting. Where do I start? So where we left off in part 1, Vern is going to leave the woods to try and find answers, try and find help, and all that. And she meets some people who can help her and can help her figure out some stuff. And that's what we're following. It's really interesting because we have Vern and her children who sort of enter like the world with other people, because especially the children have lived their entire lives in the woods where like it was only the three of them and they didn't really know anyone else. They haven't really had contact with any other humans except for each other, and now suddenly they enter the human world. Essentially, they see buildings and electricity and food that they don't know and just other people, and it's really, really interesting how they, like it's new to them and like how they react to that. And they're like this book is quite interesting when it comes to gender. Like the author is intersex, as I've already mentioned in this video. Vern doesn't know the word intersex, but there's indications that she also is. And she, when her children were born, she was like, I don't want to know what sex they are. I'm just gonna not, like, she uses he, him pronouns for both of her children, but she sort of rejects the notion that they're boys, because they're just children, right? We don't need to necessarily, gender them. And so it's really interesting because, like, I mean, yes, we have the he, him pronouns, but we actually don't really know what the gender is of these children. And I don't think they really understand the concept of gender either, because they have never really, learned about it, experienced that, like it's a social construct. They haven't really had contact with anyone who values gender as a concept. So, these children themselves, I don't think they really have a concept of gender either, which is just very, very interesting. So yeah, it's a very queer book in a lot of ways, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm really liking that. The religious stuff is very interesting as well, especially because we have the Cainites who, really reject Christianity as such as a very white religion. I don't want anything to do with it. Yet their teachings and their way of life and their values are very influenced by like white US Christianity, which I'm definitely no expert in. I don't live in the United States. I don't really come into contact all that much with this particular flavor of Christianity. But from what I know about it, like, there's definitely influences visible on the Cainites, which is just, yeah, as I said, very interesting. Like this idea of trying to reject it in every single way, but still being so fundamentally influenced by the thing. Yeah, really interesting. We're sort of figuring out like some bigger things about Caneland, and the things that's going on there, the things that, how certain things work and what certain things are. And like that is also where the horror part comes in, where I get these hauntings, which are pretty scary. But also like supernatural stuff. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this book. It also, going into this, I was a little nervous that it was going to be difficult, like, I mean, it's hard to read because it's like very dark and so emotionally it's kind of hard, but it's not like you have to think about it all that much. Like, it's not a very brainy book in order to understand it. Like, I think that there's layers to it, and that if you know more about US history than I do, then you'll get a little bit more out of this than I do now, and then it might be like you can sort of make those connections and see a lot of things that maybe then could turn into a bit more of a brainy book. But for me personally, as someone who has like a very limited knowledge of US history, like I know some important points, but and like some overall stuff, but I don't really know any specifics. It's still very, like, it's very readable and very easy to read, in like a, like, intellectually easy to read type of way, if you get what I mean. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. I definitely recommend this so far if you haven't read this already. I'm at 72%, so we're going to like the final stretch of the book, and yeah, I'm very excited because I'm really having a great time with this. But as I'm filming this, it is the 26th because I just have barely been reading this week, and it's not the book's fault at all. As I said, I really, really love it. But I just haven't been reading that much this week. So it's the 26th, like it's the evening, so I don't have much time of today left, and there's only 2 days left in February, so I won't be able to finish all 3 books that I was hoping to this month. So what I think I'm gonna do, I definitely finished Sorrowland because I have like 1 sitting of reading left in this, I think, maybe 2, but like this will definitely get finished. I'll read some more on the train, and if I don't finish it, then I'll finish it tomorrow evening. But so yeah, and then I think I'm gonna try reading Habitus in February as well, and then Necessary Fiction will just be my first book for March. I think that's how I'm gonna do it, because Habitus is split into 3 parts, and I think I would like to read like the first part in 1 sitting, the second part in 1 sitting, the third part in 1 sitting. I think that would work really nicely because each part is like thematically linked to one another. So I think I'll get the most out of it if I do it that way. And so I could read part 1 tonight, part 2 tomorrow, and then part 3 on Saturday. And then I'll have finished this in February still. So yeah, that is the updates. I think for now I'm gonna watch a movie, actually, because I think I'm gonna watch the second Zootopia movie, because I've been meaning to watch it, and I think it's gonna be fun, so I think I'm gonna do that, and then after I can start Habitus, and then like a great evening. So yeah, that was my update, and I'll talk to you once I've read part 1 of this and finished this. Okay, it is the next day, and I kind of did what I told you I would do. I watched the movie. I didn't end up watching the Zootopia because I thought I'd seen it on Disney Plus available, but it was only the trailer because it's still only in theaters, I think. So I'm gonna have to wait a little bit for that. So I watched Inside Out 2. Instead, I'd watched it before. I cried the first time. I cried the second time. I was like utterly devastated, but in a good way. Felt really good after that. But like, you know, like the scene where Riley is sitting on like the penalty bench thing, and then they're hugging. Beautiful scene. Very on the nose symbolism, but beautiful scene. And so yeah, I was kind of laughing also during the ice hockey scenes, because like I watched ice hockey for the first time during the Olympics. Belgium is more like a field hockey country rather than ice hockey. So I watched plenty of field hockey, and I assumed it would be very similar to watch. It's not. And like, no offense if you love watching ice hockey, but it's a terrible sport to watch. Like, I couldn't tell what was going on half of the time, because like the puck is really hard to see, and it's just, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So yeah, that was kind of funny. I was reminded of that during it. So yeah, I don't know, I had a great time last night, and so afterwards I did start Habitus. I read the first part, so I'm about third in, and the first part is called View with Coconut, and it is about Curacao, where the author grew up, and specifically like the contrast between the side of Curacao that tourists get to see and the side that she knows, and sort of how tourists try to separate those two aspects and ignore the ugly parts, which is kind of like hypocritical in a way. Like, I mean, obviously the title is View with Coconut, so there you have like the more touristy aspect, but then the first poem, in Dutch it's called Wat ik verstopte, which translates like things I hid. So it's essentially just her listing a bunch of these things that are part of her Curacao and the way she knows it, but what the tourists don't necessarily see, or what is not necessarily sold to the tourists, what they try to ignore. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. My favorite poem in this part, I think, I will have to find it, is in Dutch called is als, so is like, and it's about she grew up in Curacao and then migrated to the Netherlands, and like when she goes back, like how that feels, how she like this is where she grew up and so is familiar, but also she doesn't really live there anymore, and so she's also a bit of a foreigner, and her trying to define what it is to be a migrant returning home. And I think it's really beautiful, and this is a thing that I remember Radna Fabias doing from like the one poem that I read before from this collection, is sometimes she'll just have this really long like run-ons that don't really have like proper grammar either. It's just words strung together. Like I can show you, like you have like this little paragraph here is just all after another, and like when you're reading it, you're like almost like not taking breaths in between to just illustrate the immense overwhelm and all the different things that collide into one that you sort of have to untangle or try to untangle, but you can't. And I think that was like, that is something that she does that I really, really like. I also really enjoy in her poetry that like sometimes if you read just one line, you get sort of one meaning, and then if you you know, continue the sentence onto the next line, you get like different, you know, it sort of adds a layer, which I also really like in poetry. I think this is very, very well done and successful poetry. And I don't read a ton of like modern poetry, so take what I say with a grain of salt, of course. But that is something that I sometimes, when I read modern poetry, I'm sometimes like, okay, but I don't see why this is a poem. Like, this is just a sentence where you hit enter a few times, you know? Like, I don't see why this is in verse. Like, I also have that with novels in verse, like with Punching the Air by E.B. Zaboy and Nusazam. That novel is in verse, but I don't see why. Because I don't think that really adds anything to it, especially, like, instead of just being like a bit of a gimmick, but I don't think that the way it is executed really adds to it. And that's like a thing that I have with modern poetry sometimes as well. And I think that this is just using the medium that she uses really well. So yeah, I'm having a great time. I'm flipping through to see if I have any other that I really liked. There was one, it's called Capital, so like capital, and it starts off with her like inheritance, right? Where it starts off like more like physical inheritance, but then it goes on with like advice or a thing that she's been told, sort of she like internalized. I'm using she as in like the narrator of the poem, not necessarily the author, because those can be the same but don't necessarily have to be the same. But so we're going to like advise that she's internalized, which then turns into conspiracy theories. Like, and sort of they just move very gradually into one another, which is, you know, like we go from like advice to like a little superstition to like actual conspiracy theories, which I thought was really interesting to sort of illustrate how that goes. And it's once again sort of this like kind of almost rambly paragraph that just moves on from one another pretty quickly, like that type of, just really, really interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed this first section. I'm maybe even more excited to read the second part, which is called Rib. So yeah, I'll be reading that today. I might actually finish the whole thing today because it's really, really good. But yeah, that is my update for Habitus. Then I also have a little library haul for you. I wanted to get a couple books because I filmed my TBR earlier today, which I actually just finished editing. I switched editing software because like the thing that I was using had an update and I hated it post update. So terrible. So I was like, okay, this is as good as time as any to switch, because I had been thinking of switching to DaVinci for quite a while. And I was like, now's the time. So I did. And so like my previous vlog, like the February Hercules vlog, was the first thing I edited with DaVinci, which was a little like bumpy road, and I don't think DaVinci is very intuitive in like where certain things are and like where you have to search for them. But like once you sort of get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to work with. So like I then earlier today edited my TBR, and that went really well, and so I'm really happy that it switched. So yeah, I don't know. That is besides the point. I was I had filmed my TBR, and so I was going to the library to get a couple books for the TBR, but they were like almost all not available. So I just got a bunch of others that looked interesting. So, or that I was interested in. The one that I'd managed to get that was on my TBR was Aquitania by Eva Garcia Sáenz de Urturi, which is a historical fiction. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into this one. I've been meaning to read this for ages, and so yeah, this is gonna be the time. Then another one that I've been sort of on the fence of whether I want to try it or not. It's a pretty old book, or like an old series, I should say, that like I've been interested in. I was like, oh, I don't know. But then like I've been interested in it again. I was like, I don't know, is it gonna hold up? And then I was like, yeah, I do kind of, I keep going back and forth. And now I got it, and if I don't read it, I'll just return it. It's fine. But that is The City of Bone by Cassandra Clare, the first book in the, I think this is the Mortal Instruments. All the series names sound exactly the same to me. But City of Bone. So the Shadowhunter world. I want to give it a go. If I don't like it, I don't like it. If it doesn't hold up, it doesn't hold up. But maybe I will like it, and maybe it will hold up, and I will be obsessed and want to binge the series. So I got the first book. We'll see how this goes. Then I also have a thing that has been on a TBR. I've borrowed it from the library a couple times. So I really hope that I'll finally be able to read it this time. And that is Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett, which is the second Witches book. It's book however many in the Discworld series, Discworld world. So I'm kind of hoping to read it in March, actually, because it's not too long. And so I kind of hope to squeeze it in maybe during like the Peace weekend. We'll see. But yeah, I do like a good Discworld book, and it's been a while since I've read one, so I'm going to read this. And then the final book I got was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, which, from what I can tell, is about a prince who's also a drag queen or something along those lines. Or maybe like some sort of trans identity that he is keeping hidden. No, it's not really trans, because I don't know, so maybe some sort of queer identity. I've heard people recommend this for like a gender fluid prompt for HRCYED. So I was like, yeah, I can try this. It looks cute. I might also read it during the Peace weekend. It is color and illustrations. I did not notice this. I don't know, I'm so used to graphic novels being black and white, but like this is really excited to me. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I will probably read this during the Peace weekend as well. I'm really excited for it. So yeah, that is my little library haul. I will read part 2 of this, and part 3 probably finish Sorrowland. And actually, I'm kind of struggling now because I think I might finish both of these books today, and I will have like one day left before the beginning of March. Like, do I start Necessary Fiction already? Because I don't think I could read it in a day, but I also like... I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things turn out. Maybe I even have like a lot of the day left after I finished Habitus and Sorrowland, so like maybe, and because like necessary fiction is not too long, so maybe I could still make this a February vlog. Okay, we'll see about that. But yeah. Anyway, I am having a great time with my reading, so I will talk to you when I have updates. Okay, I have updates for you. First, I finished Sorrowland by River Solomon. This was excellent. The ending was really great. Like, we had some action at the end, and then a bit of like a fallout. That was really beautiful. So yeah, I did like it a lot. I have a great time with this. I don't really know what else to say about this that I haven't said yet. But I definitely recommend. I gave it 5 stars. Yeah, it's great. Highly recommend. Then I also finished Habitus. Oh, this sun is annoying. I also finished Habitus. I've read part 2 and part 3, so let's talk about them. Part 2 is called Rib, and so it's about womanhood. Like, primarily, like, I say what this part is about this, and it's not that every single poem is only about that, but it's like the main theme of the part. This one, I like, surprisingly, because like part 1 and part 3 is not about like experiences that I've had. Part 2 is more because like I'm a woman too. Yet part 2 is like the part that spoke to me the least and like affected me personally the least, like emotionally. So like there were good poems, don't get me wrong, but like they didn't stick with me as much as some of the others. Let me through. There is one in Dutch. It's called Stille Beschouwingen in het donker, so like quiet contemplations in the dark, and that is about, you know, consent and violations of consent. And then you have basically, you know, how certain people are experts at not caring about consent. I have this whole section, there it is, I have this whole section here that's just like a list of things. It's like strolling is yes, cramping is yes, every audibly perceivable reaction is yes, a paralyzed body is yes, you know, unwillingness is a slight form of disgust and therefore yes. Like it goes on like that. That's just my very bad in the moment translation of the Dutch, so like if it doesn't align with the English translation, that's why. But I really liked just like this, again, it's sort of that same thing of just, it keeps coming to show like an overwhelm of a thing, and it's just, here it's like, it doesn't matter what you do, because any action you could possibly do, or any lack of action you could possibly do, they're gonna, you know, gonna choose to interpret it as yes, because they don't really care about that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Then there is also a poem called Rib, which is like about you know, the role of women in society and what is expected of women, like in terms of like vibes. Like it's not actually similar to it, but like content wise, it's kind of like the speech in Barbie. So I did like that too. There's some like queer things, or like at least it's not really specifically mentioned, but like there is one poem in particular that yeah, that was part two. As I said, like they're not bad poems, they just didn't stick with me as much as some of the others. Then part three, which is called Demonstrable Effort Made, is about being an immigrant in the Netherlands. So yeah, it starts with this poem about, well, it's about snow specifically, and the cold, and how you have to feel it and taste it in order to understand it, and sort of, this metaphor of like, there are certain experiences that you can't tell people about, that people have to experience themselves. And what is traffic today? Oh my god. I'm so sorry for all I don't know what is going on. But anyway, but this part I really, yeah, I thought was really interesting. Then there's one about like spices, which obviously played a big role in colonization historically, and so it talks about like different spices and how it comes from different places, and we like them, but when it's people, then we hate them and want to eradicate them. Then there is a poem that sort of kind of like, maybe there have been instances before of this, but then I missed them. But I feel like this is the first time that we're like talking about kind of queer themes, because it's basically talking about 25 little moments that well, it's not really specified what exactly didn't happen, but we know that it's like something sexual related, and talk about both like the other person involved being sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. So there might be some like bisexuality going on here. So like, again, I don't know if the author is necessarily bisexual, because that, like, the narrator of a poem and the author can be the same person, but don't have to be. But like this poem doesn't, like the poem kind of talks about that, which is interesting. Then like there is one, it's called Exuki in the Stad, so like I'm looking for you in the city or something along those lines. And it is just like about I don't know how to summarize it very well. Like trying to find pieces of this other person in different places in the city, especially in terms of color. Which is, no, I like that poem too. I'm bad at summarizing this one, but I did like it. And then the last poem of this part is Demonstrable Effort Made, and that is actually the one that I'd seen the recording of her reading. That's like the very last one. And that one I really find really interesting. So it's basically about sort of an evaluation report of how well integrated an immigrant is, and it's so good. Yeah, like especially like at the end where she's like listing all the isms. And I like oh. At the end of the poem is fantastic. I love it. So yeah, that was great. And I have like a little epilogue that is like only one poem, and it feels sort of like it's first about like her parents and relationship with her parents, to then sort of this indication of her being child free and staying child free. So like, and sort of this hint of like generational trauma, you know, ending with her because she has no children to pass it on to. And it's, yeah, it's just overall a very interesting and very good poetry collection. It is hard to read at times. It is harsh sometimes, but really, really good. I really enjoyed this. I also give this 5 stars because it was just excellent. So I had 2 5 stars in a row. So, you know, Necessary Fiction had a lot to live up to. And unfortunately, I have already DNF'd it. At like page 14, it was like the writing style really didn't work for me. Like it kind of felt like, okay, so this is my story and I just have to deal with that. Because bad things happen, you know, and it is what it is. But like, that's just how life goes. And then this thing happens, but I dealt with it. And then this other thing happens, but it couldn't break me. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, it was very particular. I really did not like it. So I DNF'd it, which means that we're at the end of this video. I actually still somehow managed to read all 3 of these in February, which I did not expect. But so yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought, or tell me what you read in the past week, and then I'll talk to you in that video. Bye.